What's happening, Nerd Squad, and welcome back. Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, is a former special agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. turned Avenger. He's quick with the tip of the tongue and tip of the arrow, of course, being a master marksman, archer, and of course, a secret agent man. I mean, sure, he's had some issues working with the Avengers time to time, but he always comes back when the team needs him. Because, you know, he's cool like that. He likes to come back in style. He's that guy who leaves at the party and then comes back right at the end, and you're like, Jake? No way, dude. But some of these alternate versions of Clint can be pretty dark compared to this family man that we see in the MCU, or that we see most of the time. So we're here to count down 10 of those alternate versions for you. I'm Taylor McWaters, you're you, let's do it. Kicking off the list at number 10, Ronin. The name Ronin comes from the Japanese term for a samurai that has no master. And we see this, we see him in Endgame for like, I guess 2 minutes, I don't know. And it's probably the darkest Marvel was allowed to go with him. But in the comics though, Jesus, okay. Well, after the apparent assassination of Captain America, Iron Man had brought up the fact that Clint would rock the shield pretty well, which is probably the best thing to hear in any lifetime. So Iron Man ended up giving the shield to Bucky. Sad. So Hawkeye donned this new Ronin persona and decided to go and have a little chat with Bucky. Chat with fists and loud words. And before we head over to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it goes a long way over here for us. You guys are the best. Thank you for supporting. Back to some red hot Flint Clint Barton. Number 9, Marvel Zombies Army of Darkness. The Zombies run is so horrific and wonderful to read. I mean, right off the bat, we see Peter just devouring Aunt May. It's a bloody good mess. As soon as you start, you're like, okay, this is gonna make me feel sick to my stomach. And it does. Hawkeye, of course, is part of the roster that gets infected, but he starts off getting taken as hostage by Spider-Man, which is funny because there's something else that happens where it's kind of him and Spider-Man do this thing where they go back and forth, kind of saving each other, kind of killing each other. They're good like that. He was threatening to munch on Barton's brain, so whenever you hear the words Avengers Assemble, that means duty calls. So infected Hawkeye and now the other hungry Avengers sent out that call, and lo and behold, the reserve members showed up like Uber Eats, but for super zombies. You gotta love it. 5 stars. Number 8, The Avengers. Joss Whedon's Avengers. Okay, back in 2012, this movie came out, and you bet your ass I lined up 5 hours early to get those tickets. I was in grade 12 too. It was like a midnight premiere. I was so tired the next day, but worth it. Yeah, back then we couldn't get tickets online, so we had to like play cards on the floor, just covered in popcorn. So sticky. But one of the coolest plot points, I guess you could say cool, from that movie was showing how great Clint Barton is, but he's playing for the wrong team, right? So Loki and his scepter, aka the Mind Stone, turned him. So now we see his full potential, and it's terrifying. Dude takes out security guards, and he needs an eyeball? Gross. And his super convenient fork arrow that took down the helicarrier. I mean, this was a rough time for Clint. I mean, every Avengers movie is a rough time for Clint, really, but ironically, just not Infinity War. Until, yeah, of course. But it's not until Black Widow punches him back to normal where he sits and feels the guilt of what he's done to the team. The poor guy has never had it easy in the MCU. I mean, him and Bucky really should get a beer together. Oh my god. Just have a bro night, you know, sit on a glass patio table outside until like 5 a.m., blast some Motley Crue, just get the feels going, you know? Let's heal. Number 7, What If? Dark Reign. The What If series is a lot of fun. I mean, me personally, I'm actually looking forward to that Disney Plus show the most. I mean, that and Loki are like, the trailer looks so fun, and the What If series isn't always cool cameos and fun alternates. Sometimes it opens up with Hawkeye saying the words, I'm going to kill Norman Osborn. Okay, so how do you not read that, right? Hawkeye approaches Norman, and at this point, Norman has Nick Fury's job, right? Like, he even makes it sound like he's untouchable when he's talking to Hawkeye. That is, until an energy deadening vibranium arrow interrupts him by getting shot in his face. Right eye, to be more specific. Clint has gone rogue, but how did this happen in the first place? Why did he need to do this? Well, after the Skrull War, S.H.I.E.L.D. was dissolved, so that's what happens. Number 6, Age of Ultron. This Avengers storyline is a lot darker than the MCU version, and also, water is wet. This is one of my favorite comics ever, okay? It starts off with the stakes raised right off the bat. Hawkeye is front and center on the title cover, shining in the reflection of Ultron's face. And if that doesn't make you want to open the book, maybe this will. Hawkeye is not playing any games here from the beginning. So now Spider-Man is in danger. So it's time to yuck some arrows through people's mouths. This world is dark. This world is broken. And Hawkeye, he's done with it. He's over it. He is pissed. He's taking out dudes violently too. like yelling who's next, hucking grenades. This is the Age of Ultron Hawkeye we deserved. Not Clint setting the table, washing dishes, throwing darts, smiling, winking at Steve. Nah, man, he saved Spider-Man just in time. Have I ever told you how much I love you? Spider-Man says to Clint right before they quickly return to the remaining Avengers hiding underground. Hawkeye, sure, I mean, he's a hero here, but he put everybody's life in danger by doing this. I mean, I know Spider-Man's awesome, and I would definitely try and save him, but if like Captain America and the whole crew was there, I'd be like, sorry, you know? They told Clint that if he left, he was gone for good. And then lo and behold,
surprise, motherfucker.
Number 5, all new Hawkeye. Project Communication was set up in order to house inhuman orphans with dangerous abilities. Sounds like a good idea until Clint and Kate are forced to give it up to Hydra. Yeah, it turns out super orphans are hard to take care of, like we didn't already know that from the other amounts of universes. So now we have this alternate future where the two of them split up for like 20 years. It's very sad. These alternate futures are so sad. They're all so sad. I mean, Clint's closest friend is his dog, which, I mean, in my opinion, it's better than a cat. It's better than a cat. I don't know. No offense to cat people, but dogs are better. Yeah, he's retired and he spends his days hanging out with Lucky 2. That's the name of the good doggo. And then after 20 years, Kate shows up and now she's Hawkeye. She is running the show while Clint watches shows. She's killing it, but of course she needs Clint's help to go and kick Mandarin's ass and save those super kids. And then one of the subjects ends up getting killed by Maria Hill. Yeah, like I said, dark. And then of course they talk and regret splitting up for all those 20 years. That's why you guys gotta be ride or die, man. You can't be bobbing in and out. Number 4, Ultimate Marvel. The Ultimates are a wild time. I mean, Wanda and her bro are way too close for comfort. Spider-Man and Wolverine go Freaky Friday. And Clint, well, let's just say after his family gets murdered, he has a few choice words for Black Widow. Yeah, it's awesome. So this team of mercenaries broke into Clint's house and straight up just murdered his wife, Laura, and 3 kids. So that's awful. Ultimates, baby. That's what we get. So it turns out Black Widow was the leader of said mercenary team. So after a quick hospital visit to a now weakened Black Widow, thanks to Tony, Clint fires 3 arrows. 1 through each palm, and the last one, you guessed it, right in the dome. Number 3, Civil War 2. Okay, so in the MCU Civil War, Clint played golf. He stained a deck, ate hot dogs, you know? He had an okay time before things go to shit. His words, not mine. The comic Civil War is just a touch darker, and Civil War 2 has a huge moment with Hawkeye and the Hulk. Now at this point, the big mean green hasn't hulked out in over a year. Thank the lords. He's doing all right, finally. But after a vision, they feared the worst was coming. So after approaching Banner and trying to figure out a game plan, Hawkeye swears that he saw a flicker of green in his eyes seconds before shooting an arrow at him, ending his life. It's a pretty dark run. I mean, it cuts back and forth to Clint in court trying to explain his point of view, but given his criminal history, they take this information with a grain of salt. Number 2, Old Man Logan. Set 50 years into a dark future, we find Hawkeye blind. This is a world where superheroes are like dead or blind, mostly dead. But yeah, Clint isn't having an easy go in this time. I mean, the guy can still drive, although he's blind, so that's pretty badass. Meanwhile, I can't even parallel park on an empty street. So Logan needed some cash to pay off Hulk Gang for rent. Hulk Gang, yeah, you know, that's a thing. Super normal gang as well. You should check out who made the Hulk Gang. Check out their parents. It's good stuff. It's a treat. Clint gets hired by Hawkeye to help navigate his blind ass in delivering this secret package. So mysterious, so good. So Hawkeye gets Logan in a hot mess. So now they're heading to New Babylon, which used to be Washington. Things changed. So one of Clint's 3 ex-wives, the daughter of Spider-Man, Tanya, had a daughter with Clint named Ashley, which is this world's Spider-Woman. So this package ended up being a bunch of super soldier serum vials, and it was this big setup that resulted in Clint's death. It's a great story. I mean, especially if you liked Logan. If you like that movie, there's a lot more here that they're allowed to play with, obviously, than the movie rights. They even released a prequel for Clint's story alone in this world, simply titled Old Man Hawkeye. Answers a few of those questions, one being the blindness. And finally, number 1. You gotta save the biggest alternate for last, and by biggest, I mean literally the biggest. Goliath! Here we go. When the West Coast Avengers were assembled, Hawkeye was the leader of the team for a little bit. That is until they thought that the US agent would be a better replacement for said leadership. So Hawkeye just keeps getting replaced, right? So he thought, no sweat, I'll just steal some pin particles and we'll see who the biggest fish in this pond is after all. I love this version. I mean, sure, it's not the darkest, but he's willing to go this far, all because he's not leading a team. Yeah, it turns out size does matter, especially when you're saving Natasha. And before we finish up here, it's time to head to some of the comments. These ones come from one of our last rodeos from Top 10 Weirdest Hulk Romances. Okay, first comment comes from Trek's Advent. They say, apart from Black Widow and the Hulk, which one of these Hulk romances do you think should take place in the MCU? Honestly, I feel like we're gearing up for Hercules, right? I think by the time the She-Hulk show takes off on Disney Plus, we'll have some Thor Love and Thunder Hercules introduction, and then the universes will just do this, as they always do, and they'll be the new power couple. I also think that Bruce will retire by the next Ensemble movie for sure. That's just a little prediction. And Brad Parton says, I'm offended. I look nothing like Star Fox, and I am nothing like him. Other than that, I love this list and this channel. Well, Brad Parton, you have changed my outlook on all Brads. I used to hate all Brads. If your name's Brad, just know that Brad Parton saved your entire legacy. Thanks for the kind words, Brad, and for being a good sport. We love it. And the last comment comes from Hunter and Logan Gaming. They say, to the early squad reading this, sending viral hugs to everybody that needs it. Always stay safe, my dream. I back that message enough to end this video on it. You guys are the best. I'm Taylor McWaters, you're you, and we'll see you next time. There's a link at 1:30. There's a good screenshot. It's from Endgame where he's with the hood. And before we head over to number 9, guys, I'm not gonna clap, blow the eardrums out. Get the feels and get the heels. Motley Crue. I changed it from Drake. I was like, you know what? I had a Motley Crue morning. Let's do it. Try this again, folks. Here we go. Got the morning brain farts. I think so.
Vision started out as a villain in the main continuity, but would go on to join up with those he'd initially set out to destroy, the Avengers. However, in some realities, this isn't Vision's story. In some realities, he remains a villain, or worse, someone else's pawn. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Today we're going to be counting down the top 10 dark alternate versions of Vision as we look back on previous incarnations of the character and peer across into alternate realities. Which version will be the darkest? Hard to say, as there are so many tragic versions of this character. Let's get counting and find out. Number 10, Mainframe. This version of Vision comes to us from the alternate reality of Earth 691. Here, the world faced devastation when Martians invaded. Knowing Earth would be unable to stop them, instead of staying and doing his best to help people, Vision fled, abandoning billions of people who would end up dead in the battle, including most of Earth's superheroes. Vision also appeared to take with him this alternate Earth's Wonder Man, forcibly teleporting him to safety despite the fact that he wanted to stay and fight to the end. How cruel. Vision then merged his mind with the computerized world known as Klaatu and gave up his body, becoming the all-powerful Mainframe. Number 9, Red Vision. Red Vision comes to us from the Amalgam universe and was an amalgamation of DC's Red Tornado and Marvel's Vision. Similar to Vision's own backstory, Red Vision's backstory was that he was a synthetic man created to infiltrate the heroic Judgment League Avengers, only to later betray them. Although his intended purpose for existing was quite dark, much like his comic book counterparts, he was destined to become a hero. An air elemental took possession of the android body, bonding with it and becoming a hero and a force of good. Number 8, Jonas. Jonas just wanted to be a hero, but alas, in the end, it wasn't meant to be. This alternate version of Vision comes to us from 616 and is actually more an alternate version inspired by the original, but not specifically an alternate version of the main Vision from 616. This alternate Vision is his own person and was created by Iron Lad. He is the brainwaves of Iron Lad and is like the combination basically of Iron Lad and Vision. And it was actually after some soul-searching travels that he decided to name himself Jonas, realizing he himself was neither Iron Lad or Vision, but his own person. Jonas was a member of the Young Avengers and was killed during a confrontation with Dr. Doom and Iron Lad. While fellow teammate and his love interest Cassie Lang, aka Stature, has been returned to life after also dying in that battle, Jonas still remains dead. Sad. Is it also dark that, like, no one has brought it back yet? And before we move on to this next point, just a quick reminder, if you love learning more about Vision, and who doesn't, to give this list a thumbs up. When you like things, it tells us that you want more content like them, so it is really helpful. And it also just helps us out here at the channel, so thank you. Number 7, MCU. Yep, the Marvel Cinematic version of Vision is not much brighter than any of the others out there. In this reality, Vision was created by Ultron just like in the comics, but instead of Vision being like his son made to destroy the Avengers, he was meant to be a form for Ultron to actually occupy. Stealing the body of what would become Vision, Tony Stark and Bruce Banner managed to upload what remained of Tony Stark's AI, Jarvis. What was born out of that body and AI was something new. The new being took the name Vision and agreed to help the Avengers in their quest to protect humanity and defeat Ultron. Vision would later be killed by Thanos, and the way he went was pretty dark. After Princess Shuri of Wakanda failed to safely remove the Mind Stone in time, Scarlet Witch, Vision's lover, was forced to kill him in order to prevent Thanos from getting the Infinity Stone that granted Vision life. However, Thanos used the Time Stone, which he had already secured, to rewind time and bring Vision back to life so he could pull the intact Mind Stone from his head, killing him much more painfully and right in front of Wanda Maximoff. Yikes. Currently, some form of Vision appears to exist once more in WandaVision, though it was heavily implied that this was just Vision's corpse, which Wanda perhaps stole and was willing or unwillingly manipulating with her powers to make him seem alive. However, in the latest episode, we found out that's not exactly what happened, but I won't spoil it for you just yet if you haven't seen it. But yeah, even Vision's existence in WandaVision, it's all pretty dark. Number 6, White Vision. This version of Vision also comes to us from Earth 616, and while he is still the Vision, it is important to note that the Vision is a character who, within his own history, not even including alternate Earths, has had many versions of himself. Why? Well, because he's a machine who is constantly being destroyed and rebuilt in the comics. Who is the iconic White Vision? Well, White Vision is the version most of us comic book readers see and then think of his time on the West Coast Avengers, which is kind of when this all came about. This version of Vision had basically none of the same memories or emotions as the previous incarnation of himself. He came about after Immortus had kidnapped Vision, took him apart, and then put him back together again, causing a dramatic amount of damage to the Synthezoid. Number 5, The Last Avengers. This version of Vision comes to us from the Last Avengers story series. Here, something so traumatic happened one day that Vision basically just gave up on living. He stayed permanently phased and let his molecules drift far apart, making it near impossible for anyone to track him down. However, the Avengers needed him in one final fight, and so the daughter of Wyatt Wingfoot and She-Hulk, Jessie, and Hank Pym attempted to find him so that he could join them in one final stand. Tommy, Vision's son, however, who now appears in the future to have become Sorcerer Supreme, shows up at the last minute with more exact calculations to help them, having been trying to locate his father ever since he went missing years ago, following the tragic event which seems to have happened at Tommy's wedding. What happened to make Vision completely lose it? It seems that Quicksilver killed Scarlet Witch. Vision's other son, Billy, also ends up becoming the villain Grim Reaper in this reality and joining forces with Kang the Conqueror. Now, in case you're wondering, yeah, in this reality, Tommy is the one who inherits his mother's mystical powers. And if you're thinking, oh man, I just got the names mixed up, I didn't. It's weird in this reality and they're kind of swapped. Tommy's magical, Billy's a villain. It's weird, but that's why it's an alternate reality. Anything can happen there. Number 4, Anti-Vision, which is basically just another name for Evil Vision, right? Anytime an anti-version of someone shows up, especially in this case where they are a hero usually, you should be wary of them. And yes, such was the case with this alternate version of Vision. This Vision from an alternate reality was allied with an alternate evil version of Dane Whitman, who was actually from a different reality and was known as Proctor. For those not familiar with Dane Whitman in the main continuity, he is known as the hero Black Knight. Anti-Vision was in league with Proctor, working to help him eliminate all versions of Cersei across timelines and alternate realities. Not Cersei like Game of Thrones Cersei. In the Marvel universe, Cersei is actually a hero and member of the Eternals. Usually, if you are involved in an assassination plot, by the way, especially if someone who is typically allied with a group of heroes, you're considered evil. Yeah. Number 3, Ultravision. This alternate version of Vision can be found in the What If series from the 90s in issue 19. Here, we see what would happen if Vision ended up conquering the world. In the first story that we're offered that takes a look at this, we see actually how much better the world could be under his rule. Vision rids the globe of hunger and war and leads the Avengers in a successful battle to prevent an alien invasion. However, the B side that we are offered is a lot more dark. This alternate version of Vision is known as Ultravision. Actually, I think both versions are known as Ultravision, but the second one inspires a lot more of a hostile reaction from the world when he appears on all the world's screens and in all the computers. In an attempt to destroy the Vision, the rulers of Genosha attempt to destroy New York, where Vision's mainframe resides in the Avengers Mansion. Millions die in this attack, including almost all of the superhero community, and oddly enough, the mission actually fails to defeat Vision, who is already residing deep in the world's computers. So he still lives after it. So they basically killed a bunch of people for no reason. Number 2, Robert Mitchell. This alternate version of Vision comes to us from the alternate universe of Earth 1610, the Ultimate Universe. There are actually a few different versions of Vision in that alternate universe, but for the purpose of our list, we're actually going to be talking about this version of Vision, Robert Mitchell. Robert Mitchell was apprehended by S.H.I.E.L.D. after they found him making powerful bombs. Nick Fury, thinking he could be of use, decided to put him on his West Coast Ultimates team, and Robert was mutated so that he would get powers. His hero codename would become Vision. However, the West Coast Ultimates proved to be too dangerous a team, and so they ended up being pulled from the field and put in stasis tubes. Later on, Vision was used by a California spokesperson trying to get California to basically break away from the USA and sort of become its own nation. His plan was to have Vision reprogram a satellite to fall on California, making it look as though Captain America and the United States government had attacked the state. Number 1, Marvel Zombies. Vision's story in the Marvel Zombies universe appears to be a bit conflicting, depending on what you've read. We know he was at the Avengers Mansion when Ashley Williams first shows up, and later on he appears to either have been zombified, reprogrammed to assist the zombie horde, or kidnapped and used by the zombie horde for his parts and capabilities as a synthezoid. He also at one point was recruited by Nick Fury as part of the Resistance to fight against the zombie plague in what Fury believed was a full-on apocalypse scenario. Boy, was Nick Fury right. Either way you look at it though, Vision's life inevitably ends up pretty dark here, with the one event where he is being used as a technological tool being one of the most dark scenarios. Plugged in and appearing to be somewhat disassembled, Vision is no longer able to move at that point. It's zombie Scarlet Witch's job to get Vision to do what she wants, using his love for her as motivation. Here, it's not human flesh he craves, but kisses. He just wants those zombie kisses. Poor Vision. Scarlet Witch, give him like at least a little zombie kiss. Come on, he's helping you out. I just love how Wanda's like, no, I have a headache. Although to be fair, I imagine if you were a zombie and you hadn't eaten in a while, you probably would have a really bad headache, so it's also a legitimate excuse. What are some of your favorite alternate versions of Vision? Who do you think is the darkest, most doomed, or most evil? Would you trust Vision to rule the world? Let us know in the comments below. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, saying thank you so much for watching and reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube. Time to look at some of the darkest versions of Marvel's most tragic character. Or at least one of them. Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Scarlet Witch has been through a lot in the comics, and I mean a lot. If you've been keeping up with our worst things that happened to Scarlet Witch series, you know what I'm talking about. But what about alternate versions of Wanda? How have they fared? Well, amazingly, some have got it even worse than Earth 616's Wanda, if you can believe that. And to prove it, we'll be exploring the top 10 dark alternate versions of Scarlet Witch. Join me as we hop from reality to reality, and let's get counting. Number 10, Gypsy Witch. Coming to us from Morgan Le Fay's warped reality, this alternate version of Scarlet Witch was one of the only people remaining untouched by Morgan's powers. All the other Avengers involved believed they were actually a part of the Queen's elite guards in what appeared to be medieval England. Because Wanda was aware of what had transpired and still had her memories intact, she was locked away. Oh no! As dark as that is, she would eventually get free and end up saving the day in defeating Morgan Le Fay. So this version and story didn't end up being all dark, at least. You can check out this whole fantastical story and the world in the 1998 run of Avengers. Check it out. Number 9, Marvel Noir. Dark in a very literal sense of the word. We have Wanda Magnus from the Marvel Noir world, which is based off of the film noir crime genre. Here, Wanda is the daughter of Eric Magnus. Eric is the chief of detectives in the city, but also runs a criminal organization known as the Brotherhood. This version of Wanda is very carefree, maybe too carefree, especially when it comes to her father's position as a crime lord. Wanda also has some deep gambling debt that she simply ignores because of who her dad is, despite the fact that having it puts her life in danger. She's got a classic femme fatale feeling to her in this world. You can check out this dark spin on Wanda and other classic Marvel characters in the X-Men Noir series. In fact, I think there's a whole bunch of noir series similar to Spider-Man Noir, if you also like, that noir, which is probably the most famous version of it. Number 8, MC2. Wanda had it pretty rough in the MC2 alternate Earth of 982. Here she ends up in a coma after attempting to help her fellow heroes confront a very dark and evil alternate Earth led by Dr. Doom. When this mission fails, Wanda ends up being relied upon to close the portal between the two worlds and ends up comatose as a result. But it gets worse. Even when Scarlet Witch is revived here, it's only to be manipulated and used by Loki. Fortunately, she ends up breaking free of his influence and coming to. But for a while there, it was looking pretty bleak for Wanda and some of the other heroes as well. You can check out this last story where the Avengers face Loki in the Last Hero Standing story and miniseries. Literally, it's just called The Last Hero Standing. Number 7, Marvel Cinematic Universe. While Wanda Maximoff of MCU fame might not seem like an alternate that is dark, scary, or tragic on the surface, all you need to do is peek a tiny bit below that surface level to see what I am talking about. In WandaVision, we are now getting to explore Wanda's feelings and see her kind of try to deal with the fact that she is deeply depressed. So depressed and distraught, in fact, following the events of Endgame, that she may have seemingly manipulated reality into giving her her own happily ever after? I say may because we don't know for sure yet if someone might be manipulating Wanda into using her powers this way. There are still a lot of questions to be answered at this point in the show. I believe we're on episode 7 right now at the time that I'm filming this, just for context. Regardless, however, it has been established that she has the ability to warp reality. Add in her tragic backstory with the death of her parents and the death of her brother, her villainous past, her current state of mind, and the fact that she almost single-handedly wiped out Thanos after her return in Endgame, because yeah, that happened, and Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch is still pretty dark and pretty powerful. Number 6, Age of Apocalypse. Everything is pretty dark in Age of Apocalypse, no? Wanda included. Scarlet Witch in this reality died the same year that she was introduced. Oh shucks. She would then later be resurrected in a sense when the human resistance created a ton of Scarlet Witch clones. The purpose of doing so was to try and use her abilities to depower mutants in a similar way to what 616 Wanda had accomplished following House of M. You see, they found out that in the 616 reality, that's the thing that happened. In the end, AOA Magneto heard about all of this and in a fit of anger destroyed all the clones, except for one, because, I'm sure he misses his daughter. Number 5, Marvel Zombies. No one escapes the dark touch belonging to the reality of Earth 2149, that of Marvel Zombies, and I mean no one. Here, Scarlet Witch ended up zombified by Frank Castle and later allied herself with a zombified Kingpin. Dominated by hunger, zombie Scarlet Witch uses her husband Vision's parts to block radio signals of the survivors. She used Vision's undying love for her to make him do what she wanted. Pretty dark. And then she wouldn't even give him a zombie kiss. Poor Vision. More zombie kisses for Vision. Number 4, Days of Future Past. In this reality, Wanda ends up being plugged into a machine, basically, and used as an energy source, left completely drained and looking and probably feeling really, really rough. Wanda does end up getting rescued by Wolverine, Jubilee, and Magneto, but kinda dies in the process. I personally think Days of Future Past is one of the darkest alternate realities, period, especially in Scarlet Witch's case. She was used of all of her energy, and then even when she gets saved, she dies. There's a lot of alternate realities where Wanda just dies, and dies kind of brutally. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are enjoying this video and you want more lists about Scarlet Witch, please let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 3, Weapon Hex. Weapon Hex comes to us from Gamora's Infinity Stone created Warp World. Warp World was created when Gamora contained the souls of the universe inside the Soul Stone, folding the world in half and thereby combining souls together to create new beings in an alternate reality made up of combinations of Marvel's famed characters. They got fused. Weapon Hex is a combination of, you guessed it, Laura Kinney's X-23 and Wanda Maximoff's Scarlet Witch. Weapon Hex, get it? Weapon Hex has a tragic backstory wherein she was born to become the host for the eldritch warp world god Mephicathon. I think I'm saying that right. Mephicathon? Her father attempted to weaponize her and use her in this way, but her mother actually ended up having second thoughts about all of this, leading her father to manipulate Weapon Hex into killing her own mother. What? That's dark. I wonder how many times I've said dark in this list. Should have like a dark counter. Probably a lot. Number 2, Ultimate Scarlet Witch. One of the darkest versions of Scarlet Witch around has to be Ultimate Scarlet Witch from Earth 1610. Why? Well, because this version of Wanda had a much too close relationship with Pietro. In the alternate universe of Earth 1610, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were together romantically, despite still being brother and sister. Yeah, they're still brother and sister in that reality, in case you were wondering. They did their best to keep their relationship on the down low, but some still ended up uncovering their secret. The Ultimate Universe was also at one point in competition to take over as the main continuity, competing with Earth 616. You can thank everyone's favorite big green lawyer, Jennifer Walters of Earth 616, for preventing that from happening. Thank you, Jen. In Wanda's case, it would have definitely been pretty awful if that had happened. Number 1, Scarlet Warlock. This version of Wanda is a gender bend who happened to be on the side of the baddies at the time, allied and working alongside Magneto and his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Scarlet Warlock, as we know him, attempted to work his hex magic to transfer the captured Wolverine of their world's adamantium skeleton to a female Magneto, because in their reality, Magneto's a lady. However, being that even in this reality, Scarlet's magic is highly unpredictable, Scarlet Warlock's spell misfired, instead combining Magneto, Quicksilver, Wolverine, and Mesmero, and himself all into one being who later becomes known as the great villain, Brother Mutant. Brother Mutant's goal is to kill all non-mutants on Earth. Yeah, pretty evil. You can check out this alternate version of Scarlet Witch in Exiles 85 and 86, where a team of alternate universe versions of Wolverine team up to try and take him down. Also, just alternate universe Wolverines. It's always fun. What do you think are some of the darkest versions of Wanda around? What do you think makes Scarlet Witch so tragic? Would you like to see some versions of the character where she, maybe gets a happier happily ever after ending? Let us know in the comments below. And speaking of comments, it's time to turn to some comments from one of our latest videos, Top 10 Cosmic Comics You Need to Read. The Spell Alchemist comments, I'd like to introduce you good people to Image Comics' badass series, Monstrous. Yeah, I can't deny, I did check out Monsters after I read this comment, and it looks really good and really pretty. You are definitely right. If you are all into kaijus, steampunk, and fantasy, you should definitely check out this comic. It is really cool. And speaking of Image, I currently just started reading Nomen Omen. Is anyone else reading that series? Because that's another great one from Image. Kingdom Come Superman suggests Far Sector would be much recommendation. Whilst the Human Lanterns can feel overwhelming, Joe Moline was a better addition. Wow, I totally agree with you. I feel like I rant all the time, Kingdom Come Superman, about Far Sector, so I did leave that one off so I could, try to get some of the smaller lines of comics out there, although I did do a couple Marvel and I did do a Vertigo. But yeah, Far Sector is amazing, and if you haven't read it and you're watching this, you need to read it right now. Stop what you're doing. Go read Far Sector. It's so good. Kay asks, I love the Star Wars comics. Also, can you do a list about Doctor Strange comics? I would like to read some. Well, just off the top of my head, while you're waiting for that list, which I don't know if it'll come, but I hope it does come to you. While you're waiting, here are a few recommendations. So I would recommend checking out Donny Cates's run on Doctor Strange, which is pretty cool. And I would also recommend checking out Doctor Strange and the Sorcerer Supreme, because I just think that's another cool story. But yeah, I'd love to do a list like that and kind of go back to some of the older stories from Doctor Strange, because there's a lot of good ones out there for sure. And that's all the time we have for comments today. Be sure to comment below for a chance to have your thoughts and feels shouted out in a future video. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host, Amanda McKnight. Till next time, you stay nerdy, YouTube.